Okay, I hope you can see the slide, right? So let me start. So, so welcome back to our online session. Uh, you know, uh, Today's lecture will be on, block 4 ELT. There is English language teaching, nature, needs, and objectives. So this is the last block of, ENM 6211, fundamentals of linguistics and ELT. Okay, so uh, before we go through this, block, so let's see, in block C, we have how many have completed? How many blocks we have completed? We have completed block one, block two, block three, right? So today we shall complete this block four. So now you may think of this today's lecture as the like what should I say? Final piece of cake. Sorry, final piece of a puzzle, not cake. Sorry, uh, piece of puzzle that gives you the complete picture of ELT. That is English language teaching. That is its nature, what it needs, and what is trying to achieve. So this is all about we shall be discussing in here today, right? In today's lecture. Before to do is let's look at the lecture contents or the roadmap for this lecture four, right? So first we have review of literature, sorry, review of previous lecture. That is, and then we will break down. That is unit 16 to 20 of block four, and then learning goals. That is objectives and outcomes, and then we have interactive discussion and questions of interactive discussions of all the units, and then finally I'll give you some questions to see how much you progress or how much you have understood about the topics, and then finally we shall summarize and then conclude the lecture. Right now, let's move on to the review of the previous lecture. So now, before we move into the new content, that is the new content, right? That new content is a block four. So I want you to take a few minutes. I want let's take a few minutes, a few minutes to revisit what we have covered in block three. So this is always a good practice in any kind of academic learning or study. So looking back, help us understand what we are going. Sorry, not what we are going, where we are going, heading to. As for many of you, this review will also help you connect the dots between what you already know and what we are about to learn about today. So in block three, our central focus was the role of English within the Indians' unique socio-cultural and educational landscape, right? So that was the topic, and that we have also analyzed the language policy, meaning the decision made by the government and the institutions about which language to use and how. And we also examined the challenges, right, and opportunities, opportunities that come from India's multilingualism. Like on one hand, having many languages can make English teaching very complicated and confusing, right? And on the other hand, multilingual students are often better language learners because they are already used to switching the language. Between languages. Did Tayud join? No, he didn't join. Now this is the the overall picture of the previous lecture. Now let's move on to the unit breakdown. So this is the unit structure, block four structure. First we have what in the unit 16. Unit 16 deals with what? That is instructional planning. That is what it deals with. And Unit 17 deals with level-wise ELT, that is English language teaching. And Unit 18 deals with professional status like English in higher education and associated teaching problems. And Unit 19 deals with case studies, that is English language teaching, that is planning analysis in in relation to L1, L2, and mother tongue. I will come back to these things. What is L1, L2? Okay, and unit 20, functional status. And that is the diverse roles of English across different Indian states. So this will be very helpful if you are a teacher in schools or college or something with English teaching. This lecture will be very useful to you. Okay, now let's move on to the objectives, strategic objectives and expected outcomes of today's lecture. So first is to master the nature and core objectives of ELT, and to analyze the systematic instructional uh, planning. Why it is repeated here? I don't know. Yes. Okay, whatever it is, instructional planning techniques, and to examine level specific teaching strategies, and evaluate and to evaluate societal and professional you know challenges in ELT. These are the objectives. Okay, so there are some errors here. Actually, this is correct, but I don't know why it is repeated here in this when I show the presentation. If I close the presentation, it is fine. It's, that the words are not repeated. I'm not sure what is happening. Let's forget about that. Now, what are the outcomes? The first outcome is as a student, you'll be able to design effective level, appropriate teaching, plans, and you'll also be able to, critically assess, of ELT problems in the Indian context. And again, you'll also be able to apply theoretical knowledge to real world classrooms. So these are the objectives and expected outcomes of this lecture. Okay. Now, next is unit 16, the main discussion. That is systematic instructional planning in ELT. Now let's focus on here. So this unit, so as you can see here, this unit is all about instructional planning, and I want you to understand from the very beginning, or as a try to focus. Okay, it will be very helpful to you all. So why this matters so much? You have to understand very well from here onwards. So imagine you are a teacher I mean, imagine you are a school teacher or college teacher, whatever maybe the kind of teacher. You're a teacher on your first day of class. You walk into the classroom and your students are looking at you, right? When waiting. What do you do? Do you simply open a book and start reading? Or do you have a plan? A clear, structured, like systematic plan that tells you exactly what you want to teach, how do, you want to teach it, and how you will know if your understand students have learned it. So that second approach is what instructional planning is all about. So as you can see in this slide, it shows us a very important process. There's objectives, content, and methods. So let me explain one of each of this. So for objectives, you begin by asking, what do I want my students to be able to do by the end of this lesson? So this objective must be clear and measurable. Okay. So the second, content. Once you know your objectives, you select the content that will help you achieve them. And third, methods. You then choose how you will deliver that content. Will you lecture? Will you do group activities, or will you use audio materials? And finally, evaluation. Right. And you assess whether the students have actually achieved the objectives. This is not like for the examination, final examination, this evaluation. Okay, so it includes ongoing formative assessments throughout the lesson. Now, the central point is it is the LSRW, that is learning, speaking, reading, and writing. These are these are like the four core language skills, and a good ELT lesson plan should aim to develop all these four, not just one or two. For example, a lesson on teaching dance might begin. What happened? Okay, okay, nothing wrong. Uh, you know, like for example, a lesson or like on teaching like tenses, English tenses. Example, might begin with a teacher speaking and a student listening, right? And then move to reading example sentences, and finally require students to write their own sentences, something like that. Okay, so so this slide, and then they can see the slides. It also shows us that instructional planning must address global communication needs as well as academic demands. This is very relevant in today's world where students need English not just to pass exam but to work, communicate, complete. Not complete, compete globally. So as yeah, you're already teachers, right? As teachers or language practitioners, you must design lessons that are meaningful, skill focused, and aligned with real world, purposes. This is all about, unit 16. Now let's move on to the unit 17. Now, unit 17 brings us to a question that every language teacher must, ask. Who are my teacher students? And what do they need at this particular stages of of their development. So this unit is like a level wise ELT, level wise English language teaching, and it explores how English language teaching must be different from at the primary, secondary, and tertiary levels. So let us begin with the primary level. At this level, students are young, typically between 6 and 12 years old, so their brains are still developing, and they learn best like through like song stories and activities, right? And at the primary level, so the focus is on building basic vocabulary, simple sentence structures, and oral fluencies, right? Children at this age are not embarrassed to make mistakes. Okay, so that is actually an advantage. So that the teachers should create a warm, encouraging environment where children feel safe to speak and try new things. So activity-based learning is the most effective approach here. So confident, building is also very important. Like if a child is made to feel ashamed of their mistakes, uh, they may develop like fear of English that will last like forever, like for years. If not for it cannot be forever though, right? For years. Okay, now second, let's move on to the second level. That is by this time students are like teenagers, right? Like roughly between like 17 to sorry 13 to 17 years old, right? So their cognitive abilities have developed, and now they can now handle more formal grammar like instructions. The focus shift to comprehension, like writing and accuracy. Students at this level begin reading more complex texts, including literary pieces. There is an introduction to structured writing, essays, paragraphs, and formal letters. So the learning environment becomes more structured and systematic. And finally, the tertiary level refers to higher education, like colleges and universities. This is the level that most of you like ask, like even you like MA students are at right now. Like at this level, the focus is on critical thinking, academic writing, research skills, and professional communications. So students must be able to like you as a student, you must be able to analyze what a text construction, not like construction, like construct arguments, and write research papers and communicate effectively in academic and professional context. So the core insight from this unit is something we must all remember. Like teaching methods must evolve as learners grow. A method that works beautifully for 6 years old will not work for like 20 years old. So like vice versa, something like and so on. Okay, effective ELT is always sensitive to the age, like maturity and like cognitive development of the learner. Okay, so this is all about Unit 17, adapting ELT to learners' development level. Okay, now let's move on to the Unit 18, that is English in higher education. Like, what is the roles and roadblocks? So, so Unit 18 deals with the topic that is very closely related to the related to the reality of what very close to the reality of English teaching in India. So the rural status of English in higher education and the serious problems that come with it. So so here you can see roles and roadblocks, and I think that captures the unit very well, right? So English, now let's begin with the role itself. So English holds a dominant and prestigious position in Indian higher educations. It is, the primary medium of instruction in most science, like technology, like administrations, law, and medicines. So research papers are written in English. International conferences are conducted in English. So if students want to access global academic resources, textbooks, like journals, online courses, they need English. And if the professional like wants in their career in IT, banking, like government business, or like English proficiency is often a non-negotiable, negotiable, requirement. So the role of English is not just an important; it is like in many ways like indispensable. Okay, so now let's talk about the roadblocks. So the first and perhaps most critical challenges is the shortage of trained ELT professionals. So many people who teach English in India have a degree in English literature, but have never been formally trained in how to teach language. So this is a significant problem. Teaching literature and teaching a language are very difficult. Sorry, are very different skills. So the second, you should be knowing that. Okay, so teaching literature and teaching a literature languages, all these two are very different skills. And the second challenge is infrastructure. Many colleges and universities in India, especially in rural areas, have like overcrowded like classrooms sometimes, like which is for like 50 students in a classroom designed for 30. Like, which is actually designed for 30. Like, it's overcrowded, where classrooms are overcrowded, like individual attention becomes like impossible, right? The quality of teaching like suffers, right? So this is the thing. The third challenge is the mother tongue interference. When a student speaks a different language at home, like Bengali, Hindi, Tripuri, or like Kokborok, even my mother tongue, that is Mosong. Anyway, other languages too in India, other languages of India, maybe other languages in India. So the mother tongue naturally influences the way they speak and write English. So this leads to uh, persistent grammatical errors, so pronunciation problems, and sometimes a lack of confidence. So, and finally, there is a problems of standardization. Not all colleges like have access to modern, teaching aids, digital resources, or standardized textbook. The quality of ELT therefore varies enormously from one institution to another. So, from one state to another. Okay. So now, even if you're a student, you're a part of this solution of this problem now. You're a part of the solution of this problem now. So understanding these challenges is the first step toward addressing them. Okay. So this is all about Unit 18. Now let's move on to the Unit 19. That is that is ELT plan, navigating L1, L2, and mother tongue. So it takes us to the world of language planning and the relationship between the student's mother tongue and the first language and English as second language. So this is a topic of great practical importance for anyone who wants to teach or like study languages in India. Okay, so let us first clarify some terminology, like the term mother tongue, like or MT, right? You can see here, that it refers to the language a person learns at home, the language they grew speaking with their family. So in linguistics, it is also called, L1 or first language. In India, this might be like Kokborok, Bengali, Hindi, Mizo, like Molsong, any language. Like the term L2 or the second language refers to a language that is learned after the first language. And in India, English is typically like this second language for most learners. Okay, so now as you can see here, the slide tells us something very important, from the research. Like students who have, if we can look in the case studies, case inside, students who have, a strong foundation in their mother tongue tend to be more successful at learning English. This might be surprising at first, right? Why not knowing your mother tongue help you learn a completely different language, right? So the answer lies in how language learning works. And when a child develops literacy, like thinking skills, like communication abilities in one language, these skills transfer to the new language that they are learning. So a student who can read, write fluently in Bangla, right? For example, your mother tongue, right? Yes, sir. So you already understand what it means to read, to structure sentence, so to express ideas in writing. So these skills, will support in, English training. Okay. The second case insight is that uh, the bilingual strategy. Research in language education consistently shows when teachers use the students' mother tongue strategically, not all the time though, but at key moments, it helps students understand difficult concept better. So right now I'm teaching in English, right? If I could talk to you in Bangla, you'll understand better, something like that. So if a student is confused about the concept of past, like for example, past perfect tense, right, from the tense, a brief explanation in their mother tongue can clarify the concept, right? If you explain your emotion, you will understand better, right? If you're Bengali now, if you explain your Bangla properly, you'll understand. Something like that. So then the student can use the understanding to engage with English. This is what we mean by bilingual teaching. And the third case is, a case inside is that the third is pointing is about the point. It is about the psychological impact. So many students, in India feels anxious about speaking English. They are afraid of making mistakes, afraid of being judged, or when teachers use mother tongue to bridge gaps. It reduces this anxiety. So students not only feels understood, supported, and more confident. And confident students learn much faster. Remember. So the core message of Unit 19 is remember, please try to remember. Do not treat mother tongue as an obstacle to English learning. Treat it as a resource. A student's linguistic background is not a problem to overcome. It is a foundation to build upon. Okay. So now let's move on to the final, unit of this block. That is the diverse landscape of English across India. So that is unit 20. So this unit 20 zooms out. Remember, zooms out and gives us like the big picture. Big picture. Let's say the big picture, the complete picture. It asks how is English actually used across different parts of India, and the answer, as you can see here, in the on the slide, it makes it clear, right? Like that. The role of English is not like same everywhere. It varies, enormously, depending on the political, social, and economic context of each state. Now you can look at the the four region highlighted on the slide, right? First is the West Bengal. In West Bengal, there is relatively balanced integration of English alongside Bengali. So the dominant regional language though. So English is important, but it coexists with Bengali in education, administration, and daily life. So the relationship between two languages is generally one of cooperation rather than competition. Remember. Okay. Now second, Karnataka. Let's come to Karnataka. Here there is a very high demand of uh, you know for English, driven driven primarily by the information technology sector. So it is this place is the like tech capital of uh, India, right? This particular state, right? So home to thousands of multinational companies. So English is actually necessary or essential for like professional success in this environment. So the demand for English is not just academic. Remember. So it is directly tied to economic opportunities. Okay. So like now let's come to the Tamil Nadu. So here English has a very interesting and sometimes politically charged role. Like Tamil Nadu has historically been a state where the Hindu languages faced strong resistance. Remember, right? And English has often been used as neutral language, a language that allows people from different linguistics background to communicate without one group feeling that another's language being imposed on them. So in Tamil Nadu, so English has a specific like socio-political significance that is quite different from other states. All right. And finally, there are North Indian states. So places like Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Rajasthan, and others. Like in these states, English frequently seen as the key to social mobility. So many students from rural, economically disadvantaged backgrounds see English as the ladder that will allow them to climb into uh, better educational institutions, better jobs, and better life. So English in this context becomes associated with aspiration, hope, and the promise for a better uh, future. Now I would like to ask you to do something, a kind of assignment, kind of. Not only yourself, everyone. Why not try to do research on Northeastern English, Northeastern states in India? What is it? What is the role of English in Northeastern India? Okay, remember, note this. I may have said it any day. Have you done research also like that? So, what is the role of English in Northeastern India? Now the core conclusion. Now the conclusion is like as you can see here from Unit 12, sorry, Unit 20. So the role of in India is not uniform. Remember, that's why I'm asking you to do research on the role of India in Northeast India. Because the role of India in India is not uniform. It varies significantly based on political, social, economic factors, very unique to, like each state. As ELT practitioners, English language teaching practitioners, and language professionals, we must be aware of this, regional variations. A one size fits all approach to English, teaching will not work in a country like as diverse as India. Because in India we don't speak only one language. We don't speak only Hindi. No, we speak many languages in India. Okay, so we must be contextually sensitive, regionally aware, and always, we're willing to adapt. Okay, this is all about unit 20. Unit 20. So with this, I think we complete unit 5 units of block 4, and also we also complete with this entire blocks of ENM 62111. That is fundamentals of linguistics and ELT. So let's move on to the discussion questions now. So try to prepare these questions. Sorry, where is one? Like these are the questions. I would love to. I want you to. I kindly request you to. Look into it. So to see whether you have understood whatever have been discussed, or after having read the SLM, if you have understood something, then to see that is to see your progress, to check your progress, to evaluate your progress. That's why you will have to attempt these questions. Okay. So the first question is the what is the instructional planning in what ELT, and why it is critical for effective classroom delivery. All right. So try to write this within like 200 or 300 words. Try to justify these questions. Okay, you may show it to me. It will help you. You will also develop your writing skills. And now second question is that uh, how should English uh, teaching methods adapt between primary, secondary, and tertiary levels? Okay, this is the question. And third question is discuss the three most significant problems facing the effective teaching of English in India today. Okay, so discuss, try to attempt all these questions. All right, and then you may send it to me or via WhatsApp, whatever you have written. All right, or via email. And now let's come to the conclusion. What are the main takes away from today's uh, discussion? The first takeaway is this: like ELT is indispensable, like for academic, professional, and global success in 21st century. Remember, the second takeaway is like that effective instructional planning serve as the backbone of like successful like language instruction. Whenever you do in the ELT classroom, you must plan. You must know what you're teaching, why you're teaching it, and how you'll teach it, and how you will know if it has been learned. So this is not like bureaucracy. It is like professionalism. So it is like respect for for your students' time and intelligence. And third takeaway is that core sensitive teaching methods are required to navigate Indians' diverse linguistics, landscape. India is not one place, right? It has hundreds of places with different languages, different histories, like different educational traditions, and different needs. So effective ELT in India requires us to be humble, curious, and adaptable. So what works in Karnataka, or may not work in Agartala or Tripura, right? So what works for a tertiary level students may not work for a primary, level child. Okay, so these are the takes away of block four, or yeah, ELT, right? So now this is all about the block four. Now, if you have any questions, doubts regarding this block 4 and overall, if you have overall doubts of the entire paper, of course, you may raise questions, or if you have, you may raise question, or you may send me the doubts through email or WhatsApp, and I will try to respond to it. So, uh, thank you so much, and I wish you all the very best. And in few months, you'll be appearing for the second semester exam, right? So prepare well, and if you need revision class, right? Revision sessions we can have in next week. And thank you again, and see you in the next session.